For the Windows 2000 Professional, there's a few enhancements in device management. The first one, Advanced Power Management, or APM. And the second one, which we're going to talk about now, is the Plug and Play, or short form for PNP. So for Plug and Play, it gives the computer the ability to automatically configure expansion boards and other devices. Some examples of expansion boards would be things as video adapters, sound cards, internal modems, or accelerator boards. There's a few other examples that I haven't listed here. There's also in the device examples such as disk drives, mice, printers, and modems. Now what happens when Plug and Play is active? It assigns system resources to the device, such as the memory address range, the IRQ settings, the DMA channels, or the I/O, which is the input-output port addresses. Now these four resources must be unique, otherwise the device won't function properly. Now there's a few different scenarios that we can come across when we're installing devices. We can either come across a situation where there's no support at all for Plug and Play, and that means that the hardware nor the device driver supports it, and in that situation what we'll have to do, we'll have to manually configure the device. There's also, on the other side of the spectrum, there's full support, where both the hardware and the device driver supports the Plug and Play, which is usually the best situation and the easiest. The third situation is the hardware is supported, but the device driver is not, and in that situation, it's treated as a legacy device. And the last situation would be that the hardware is not supported and the device driver is supported, and this gives the Plug and Play partial management, such things as resource management, but it won't give the device drivers the ability to configure the hardware. Now when you want to search for the new Plug and Play hardware, you'd go to the Start button. I'm going to try to get to the control panel here. There's a few different ways to go around this. Either open up the control panel, or you could click the right-click the My Computer, open up the properties, and there you would see the hardware, and from there you could go to the Hardware Wizard. So once again, we have two paths to go. You can go either Add Remove Hardware or the Hardware Wizard, whichever one is best for you. I'll just click this one here. It's going to lead to the same place. And here it is, Welcome to the Hardware Wizard. Just click Next here. The two choices here are, the first choice is to add, which you would choose if you're installing a new device or you're having some problems with an old device that's already in your system. And the second one is to uninstall, and this is if you want to uninstall or unplug a device. Okay, I'm just going to go press Next. We're in the Add Remove Hardware Wizard. Pressing Next, and what it's doing now, it's going to search the system to install from the Plug and Play devices. Okay, now it's listed off all the devices in the system. And the first one is always going to be Add a New Device. It's the first option. These two means that there's the device is not configured properly. And we're just going to go ahead and we're just going to click Add New Device. Press Next once again. And here I get a choice of options. Here we can either choose questions. Do you want Windows to search for your new hardware? Yes, search for new hardware. Or no, I want to select the hardware from a list. So if I choose no, it's going to give me a list of hardware, and then I'll be able to choose from a list of drivers on the hard drive. If I choose yes, we're going to have a few options to search for new hardware, so I'm going to go ahead and click yes. And right now what it's doing, it's detecting the hardware that's is not Plug and Play compatible. And this could take a few minutes, so I'm just going to pause it here for a second. And then the end result is that Windows did not find any new devices on your computer. And if we want to specify which device to install, we're going to just click Next. And this would have been the same screen that we would have gotten to if we chose No from the earlier screen. And here we're given a list of different kinds of devices and hardware that we can install. Just going to check, just going to pick one, network adapter. And then afterwards we're given a list of network adapters by the manufacturer and then by the network adapter listing. If you have the disk, or if you find that your network adapter is not available, you can choose have a disk, and you can either afterwards, I'll just show you what happens. We're able to browse a location. Let's say you've downloaded it from the website, or you've got a disk for it, so then you would choose this way. If you can find it on the window here, then you can choose it that way too. So we'll just pick one like this, and it just asks to confirm, and now it's going to start the installation process, and it finds that the network adapter is not found on the system because I didn't have that device. So we're just going to finish this part up here, and we're going to continue on to device manager and driver signing. This is from the system properties menu that I accessed through the My Computer. I went to properties, and then that would have opened up the system properties here. So we went through the hardware wizard. Now we're going to go through device manager, which is very similar to the device manager in previous versions of Windows. It's giving a second to open up. Let's go open it up bigger. And here what it has, it's a listing of all the devices on the system. There's a few different kinds of things that can be displayed here. The question marks mean that the device isn't configured properly, or that device drivers are missing. In order to get information on this, we can click it, we right click it, and here we're opened up another menu, and we can see the device status. The problem is that the device drivers for this device are not installed. It gives us some reasoning. We can look at, we'll just go back and we're going to look at one that we do have installed. So same thing, right click it. Here we also have a choice. If we want to uninstall, we can disable it, we can scan for hardware changes, or we can click on the screen here, scan for hardware changes and properties. So what we're doing, we're right clicking onto the device, going to the properties. We're also able to here to disable, uninstall, the same features as we had up here. So properties, I'm going to open up this window here. One other point about the device manager, if we can either see that this means that devices are functioning normally when there's no sign of anything beside it. The exclamation mark, as I said, means that it's not configured correctly. And you can also have a third option. You might have a stop sign there instead of the exclamation mark, and that would mean that the device is disabled by Windows, and this could be due to resource conflicts or that sort of thing. Okay, so we're just going to go back to the properties here. Okay, here we can see the device type, the manufacturer. It's good to make note of the manufacturer if you have to go to the internet to download a driver, the location of the device, and it gives us that the device is working properly. If we had some problems, we could troubleshoot it, and this opens up another window. This is just a simple help window where we can search by contents, by index, or we could search even by the questions here. We could search by those. So I'm just going to get out of this for a second here. And here once again we've got device usage. We can use the device, we can enable it, and we can disable it from here also. Just going to leave it enabled. We can check the driver. This is the driver. We can either get the driver details, we can uninstall the driver, or we can update the driver. We check off resources. We have our I/O range, our input-output requests, and we see here the flicks. So this device seems to be working properly. If we do have a device that isn't working properly, what we can do, we can try a simple solution by just deleting it or uninstalling it. And then the next time that Windows starts up, then hopefully it might be able to find a better driver for it. It's going to ask us the question. It's going to try to locate the driver for it. Okay, so there are many ways to get to the device manager, as I said before. That was one of them. We can right click on the My Computer. We can either go to Manage, and we can find it this way also. And it's as MMC Snap-in also is another way to find the device manager. You can see it displays the same information that we had on the other screen previous. And we're going to go to driver signing. So what this is again in the system properties window, and we've right clicked on the My Computer to open up the system properties. we've gone to the hardware tab and we went through the hardware wizard, device manager, and now driver signing. Now this is just the settings to that Microsoft can look for the digital signature on different drivers. Driver signing is used from Microsoft as an attempt to increase the stability of the system. It basically essentially means that the driver has gone through some Microsoft testing and that it was going to be working well with the system. And we've got 3 verification settings here. We can ignore, which is install all files regardless of the file signature, a warning, display a message before installing an unsigned file where the little pop-up block pops up, or you can block, which would prevent installation of unsigned files. So we're just going to keep it at warn, which is the default setting. Just keep it at OK. Now we're going to talk about different kinds of storage media, CDs and DVDs. So I'm going to right click here again on the my computer, open up the properties, and we're going to go to the device manager. We're going to look up the DVD and CD properties. Okay, there's our device manager. So we're going to open up the DVD CD drives. First one's the DVD-ROM drive, which we're going to open it up and we're going to see the different properties. There's actually 4 different kinds of DVDs. There's a DVD video, which is supported by computers with high resolution or DVD players. There's the DVD-ROM, the one that I have, and this one the computer can read the data on it. And there's also DVD-WO, which is write once, which is kind of the same kind of media as the CD-ROMs, where you can write at one time. And there's the DVD-RAM. It supports multiple reading capabilities, so you can record it more than one time. Okay, anyway, we're going to get back to the DVD here. We've opened up the DVD in the device manager. It's the same, similar as the other items in the device manager, except when we go to here, we go to properties. And this actually gives us the volume of the CD player, a digital CD playback. And here we're given a choice of either analog playback or digital playback. And we can check off enable digital CD audio for this CD device. There's also advanced settings. In here we've got DVD region settings. And from here we have to choose the region that we're going to be in. And then once again the driver settings. So I'm going to open up here also the properties for the CD writer drive, that is. We can see the properties are similar to the DVD, where we've got the volume, and we're also able to have analog and digital playback. So I'm just going to shut this down, and we're going to go over to the computer management by right-clicking the My Computer. Click the left-click the manager. Just giving it a second to open up here. Okay, there it is. I'm going to enlarge it. Okay, and where we're going now, we're going to go to Disk Management. Select Disk Management, and it's going to give us the disk setup on the computer system here. We've got a C, D, E, and F drive, so these two are actual partitioned on one hard drive, and then these two are, the first one is the DVD drive and the second one is the CD-ROM drive. Okay, our hard drive is known as the basic disk, and it can contain primary partitions, extended partitions, and logical drives. The basic disks generally are the same disks that we've been using for same hard drive configuration that we've been using in previous versions of Windows. Same as before, where any disk can have up to 4 primary partitions, or 3 if there is an extended partition. Okay, then what's new to Windows 2000 is the ability to create dynamic disks. And dynamic disks have the following features. They're able to extend volumes and volume sets, add a mirror to a simple volume, remove a mirror from a mirrored volume, and create simple spanned, striped, mirrored, and RAID 5 volumes. So the features of the dynamic disks. In order to create a dynamic disk, what we would do is we would right click here, and we're given the option to upgrade to dynamic disk, or we can also see the properties of the disk. This is the properties, the size of the disk, the capacity. These are the basic disks. On a dynamic disk, you're going to have volumes. You're no longer going to be able to have partitions. And dynamic disks are only accessible to computers running the Windows 2000 operating system. So when you're trying to create a dynamic disk, you can either only go one way. You can create it from the basic disk, but you can't create a basic disk from a dynamic disk. There's really no way to convert dynamic volumes back to the partitions of the basic disks. It really is two separate kinds of formats. The basic disks use the master boot record to identify the start and end of the partitions, and the dynamic disks don't follow the same format. The dynamic disk can have the same partition table, but only has one entry that encompasses the whole disk, and this allows the system to see a valid partition table when it is booting. Dynamic disk configuration stores the volume information on the physical disk in a small 1 megabyte database at the end of the disk. Okay, now we're just going to use a few of the keys up here. This is the properties key, this is the refresh key. Properties is the same as when you right click it, gives us the same window that opens up. And this is the settings key, so we're going to just open that, and this allows us to view the settings of the particular disk drive. So I'm just going to move this over here, and this just basically lets us see the settings about how it's going to be displayed for us. In order to have an easier display, we'd change our settings. And then we have scaling. This is basically how it's displayed once again. We have three choices on the display here of the disks, and the disk regions we have three choices also. We're going to talk about the 5 different kinds of volume sets that are available. Originally we had a basic disk, and we took the basic disk, we converted into a dynamic disk in the convergence process that I showed you earlier, and this is just simply, it's turned into a simple volume, and that's all it is after you've converted it. Okay, the second one is spanned volumes. Essentially it's a simple disk and it's extended to another disk. So we have our basic one that we created earlier, or we can just circle this one. This would have been the first one that we created, disk number 1, and we've extended it to 2 other disks, and this has created our spanned volume this way. So they would all be connected. We can connect either to one other disk all the way up to 32 other disks. Windows 2000 gives us that option. The third one is mirrored volumes, which provides fault tolerance volume duplicating data on 2 physical disks, always located on different disks. So here we have the data coming in. It sends 1 copy to physical disk number 1 and 1 copy to physical disk number 2. This is coming in from the outside source. And what happens when we're saving the data, if one of the systems goes down, we're able, let's say physical disk number 1 goes down, we're still able to use the data off of physical disk number 2. It's essentially like there was a mirror in the middle here that was creating the exact duplicate of physical disk number 1 and physical disk number 2. So let's say you have three disks that are mirrored, you'd actually have 6 physical disks in total. You can't just use 1 physical disk for the mirroring process because you won't be able to do it properly. You can't mirror 1 physical disk. The striped volumes offer the best performance, but they don't offer any fault tolerance. You're using anywhere from 2 to 32 disks, and you're combining all the free space. Let's say we had 7 disks here, and these dots are all free space. We would be combining all the free space on all 7 disks in order to create a striped volume. And we can use anywhere from 2 to 32 disks to complete this process. Is that if a disk is in a striped volume fails, the data in the entire volume will be lost. So let's say this one fails here, we've got a problem with all the 6 other ones that were in the same volume. So this is the downside to having better performance but not having fault tolerance. Number 5, RAVE 5 volumes. They have excellent performance and good fault tolerance. You need to have a 3 drive minimum. So what in a sense, the first drive is being used this number 1 would be used for drive parity, and the other 2 would be used for drive volume. Now when you have 3 drives, it's not as efficient as if you were to maybe have a few more drives here. I'm going to add in a couple more here. And let's say all of a sudden we have drive 3 and drive 4. This is still used on the 1 drive for parity, and then 2, 3, and 4 are drives for volume. So in fact, by adding the drive volumes, you're increasing the efficiency of the entire system here. In a sense, RAID 5 is designed for physical disk failure, to protect against one single disk that fails, and it's able to get the information from the drive parity.